I handed my wife my wedding ring while she sat with another man. Her reaction stunned everyone. The night I handed my wife my wedding ring, she was sitting beside another man in the most expensive restaurant in Manhattan. His hand rested on the back of her chair, as though he had already claimed the space where I used to belong. A bottle of wine worth more than my monthly rent stood between them, half empty, catching the golden light from the chandelier above. My wife, Claire, wore the burgundy dress I had bought for our 5th anniversary. The dress she had once said made her feel beautiful because I looked at her as if she were the only woman in the world. That night, she wore it for him. Dozens of conversations faded as I approached their table. Forks stopped halfway to mouths. A waiter froze beside the bar. 2 men near the entrance, both wearing dark coats and serious expressions, watched me carefully. Claire's smile disappeared. The man beside her, Victor Hale, leaned back in his chair and looked me up and down. His tailored suit probably cost more than everything I owned. I stopped beside the table, reached into my pocket, and placed my wedding ring in front of Claire. The small band struck the white tablecloth with a soft metallic sound. Claire stared at it. Then she looked at me. "What are you doing here?" she whispered. I had imagined that moment for weeks. In some versions, I shouted. In others, I overturned the table or punched Victor in the face. But standing there, seeing my wife's hand tremble beside the wine glass, I felt something colder than anger. Clarity. "You said you needed time to decide what you wanted," I told her. "I thought I'd make the decision easier." Victor gave a quiet laugh. "This isn't the place for a domestic scene." I turned toward him. Up close, he looked exactly like the photographs in business magazines. Silver at the temples, expensive watch, perfectly controlled smile. He was the CEO of Hale Urban Development, the man newspapers called the king of Manhattan real estate. He was also the man my wife had been seeing for 4 months. Claire stood abruptly. "Ethan, please. Let's talk outside." "No," I said. "You've done enough. Things in private." The room became completely silent. Victor's smile tightened. "You should leave before you embarrass yourself." I looked at him, then at Claire. "I'm not embarrassed." That was the first lie I told that night. I was humiliated beyond anything I had ever known. For 7 years, I had loved Claire with the stubborn devotion of a man who believed love could survive anything if he worked hard enough. I supported her while she earned her MBA. I worked 2 jobs when she took an unpaid position at a consulting firm. I sold the classic car my father had left me so we could afford the down payment on our apartment. When she became a senior strategist at Westbridge Capital, I celebrated every promotion as if it were my own. But somewhere along the way, my sacrifices became proof of my smallness. Claire began introducing me as my husband, the technician, even though I was a systems engineer. She joked about my old jackets in front of her coworkers. When I talked about the software platform I had been developing at night, she called it my little computer project. At first, I laughed with everyone else. Then one evening, at a party in our apartment, I heard her speaking to Victor on the balcony. "I married potential," she said. I didn't realize potential could expire. I stood behind the curtain with 2 glasses of champagne in my hands. She never knew I heard her. Now, in the restaurant, Claire glanced around at the watching faces. Her cheeks reddened, not from guilt, but from the public attention. "You came here looking like that?" she hissed. I looked down at my faded blue shirt and the rain-darkened shoulders of my jacket. "I came from work." Victor raised his glass. "Some people never understand presentation." Claire closed her eyes briefly, as if I were the one making the situation unbearable. "Ethan, please go home," she said. "We'll discuss this tomorrow." Home. The word tasted strange. 3 days earlier, Claire had told me she needed space. She had asked me to stay in a hotel while she considered whether our marriage still made sense. That afternoon, I had returned to the apartment to retrieve my laptop and found a restaurant reservation. Confirmation on our shared tablet. Table for 2. Victor Hale, 8:30. When I arrived, I had planned to demand an explanation. But then I saw the way she leaned toward him, smiling with a softness she had not shown me in years. There are moments when pain stops feeling like a wound and starts feeling like an answer. I took the apartment key from my pocket and placed it beside the ring. "You won't have to discuss anything tomorrow," I said. "My things are already gone." Claire's face changed. For the first time that night, she looked genuinely alarmed. "What do you mean, gone?" "I mean you're free." Victor's hand moved from the back of her chair to her shoulder. It was a subtle gesture, almost comforting, but Claire flinched. She looked at the ring again. You can't just walk away. I almost smiled at the irony. I thought that was what you wanted. I wanted time. No, you wanted permission. Her lips parted, but no words came. I turned and walked toward the exit. Behind me, I heard her chair scrape against the floor. Ethan, I stopped but did not turn around. Her voice was smaller now. Are you really ending our marriage like this? I looked over my shoulder. No, Claire. You ended it months ago. I'm just returning the ring. Then I walked out into the rain. I had no dramatic plan for what came next. No secret fortune waited in an offshore account. No limousine idled at the curb. I had one suitcase in the trunk of my 10-year-old sedan for $1,000 in savings and a room above a laundromat in Queens. The room smelled like detergent and damp plaster. The radiator clanged every 30 minutes. My bed folded out of the wall, and when it was open, I could not fully open the closet. On my first night there, I sat on the floor with a carton of cold noodles and stared at the blank screen of my laptop. Claire called 17 times. I did not answer. Her messages began with anger. You had no right to humiliate me like that. Then denial. Nothing happened between Victor and me. Then accusation. You pushed me away by refusing to grow. Finally, near 3 in the morning, she sent 5 words. You'll regret walking away. I read them twice, turned off my phone, and opened the software folder she had once called my little computer project. The project was called Aegis. For nearly 6 years, I had been building it in stolen hours, after work, before dawn, on weekends while Claire attended networking events. It was a predictive infrastructure platform designed to identify structural failures in city buildings before they became visible. The idea had begun with my father. He had spent 32 years as a building inspector. When I was 16, a neglected apartment block in the Bronx partially collapsed. 2 people died. My father had filed 3 warnings about the building, but they were lost inside separate city departments using incompatible systems. He carried that guilt until the day he died. I began developing Aegis because I believed data could reveal danger before bureaucracy buried it. The platform combined maintenance records, environmental conditions, sensor data, construction history, and thousands of other variables. It could detect patterns no human inspector would have enough time to see. At least, that was the theory. The reality was messier. My code crashed constantly. Investors dismissed the idea as too expensive. Government agencies liked the concept, but refused to risk adopting and proven technology. Claire listened politely during the first year. By the third, she rolled her eyes whenever I mentioned it. You're wasting your best years, she once said. You could take a management position, earn a respectable salary, and stop pretending you're going to change the world. That sentence stayed with me. Not because it hurt, though it did. Because I had started to believe her. After moving into the room above the laundromat, I stopped asking whether Aegis would succeed. I worked because it was the only thing that kept me from replaying the restaurant scene every night. I woke at 5, worked my engineering job until 4, delivered food until 8, then coded until 2 in the morning. Some nights, my hands shook from exhaustion. Some mornings, I found my forehead resting on the keyboard. I did not post inspirational messages. I did not announce a fresh beginning. I simply built. Claire filed for divorce 6 weeks later. She hired one of the most aggressive attorneys in the city. During mediation, she arrived wearing white and carrying a handbag Victor's company had given to executives at a charity gala. She never looked at me directly. Her attorney argued that the apartment belonged primarily to her because her income had covered most of the mortgage during the final years of our marriage. He described Aegis as an unrealized hobby with no current commercial value. I could have fought. Instead, I signed away my share of the apartment in exchange for full ownership of the software. Claire finally looked at me. You're giving up $200,000 for that. Yes. Her attorney leaned toward her and whispered something. Claire smiled without warmth. Fine. Keep your fantasy. The mediator pushed the documents across the table. As I signed, Claire said quietly, You know Victor offered you a position. I stopped writing. What? He said you could work in one of Hale Development's technical departments. It would be more money than you make now. I studied her face. She genuinely believed she was being generous. You discussed my employment with him? He was trying to help. No, Claire. He was trying to own the man whose wife he took. Her expression hardened. You always do this. Do what? Turn kindness into an insult because you're too proud to admit you need help. I signed the last page and placed the pen on the table. "You're right about one thing," I said. "I don't need his help." Her laugh followed me out of the room. That afternoon, I returned to the laundromat apartment and discovered that the ceiling was leaking onto my desk. Water had soaked one corner of my notes. I stood there surrounded by buckets, legal documents, damp pages, and the remains of a marriage I had once thought would last forever. For the first time, I broke. I sat against the wall and cried until I could no longer breathe properly. Not because Claire had chosen Victor. Not because I had lost the apartment. I cried because I finally understood how completely I had abandoned myself trying to become a man she could respect. I had measured my worth through her eyes. Every promotion I did not receive became evidence that she was right. Every investor rejection sounded like her voice. Every failure felt like another reason she had been justified in leaving. That night, I deleted every photograph of us from my phone. Then I wrote one sentence on the wall above my desk. "Build something that matters, even if no one applauds." 3 months later, Aegis detected a stress pattern in a public parking structure in Newark. I had connected the platform to a small network of legal, publicly accessible maintenance databases. The system flagged a combination of water damage, temperature shifts, concrete age, and repeated vibration complaints. I sent the report to the city. No response. I sent it again. A week later, an assistant engineer named Maya Torres called me. "Are you the person behind Aegis?" "I am. Your model predicts a load-bearing failure in the west section." "Yes. Our last inspection found nothing critical." "I know. Then why are you so certain?" "I'm not certain. I'm saying the probability is high enough that you should inspect beneath the surface." She was silent for several seconds. "You realize how strange this sounds?" "I do. Send me everything." Maya ordered a targeted inspection against her supervisor's recommendation. Engineers discovered severe internal corrosion hidden behind a recently repaired exterior wall. The structure was closed 2 days before a major holiday shopping weekend. The city estimated that the decision may have prevented hundreds of injuries. Maya called me from the empty garage. "You were right." I closed my eyes. "No," I said. "The data was right." That call changed everything. Maya left her city position and joined me as Aegis's first employee. She brought her former college roommate, a brilliant machine learning engineer named Samuel Reed. We rented a windowless office above an auto repair shop. There were 3 desks, 1 coffee maker, and a bathroom door that did not close. Our first 6 months were brutal. We pitched 37 municipalities. 34 rejected us. 2 never replied. 1 agreed to a limited trial. We worked 7 days a week. Maya handled engineering partnerships and regulatory compliance. Samuel rebuilt the prediction engine. I managed product design, sales, technical implementation, and whatever else needed to be done. When our savings ran low, I sold my car. When payroll came due, I paid Maya and Samuel first. When the landlord threatened eviction, we worked from a public library for 3 weeks. Still, Aegis improved. The platform identified gas line risks in Philadelphia, water damage in Baltimore schools, and electrical failures in a Chicago housing complex. Each success led to another pilot program. 2 years after the divorce, we received our first serious investment offer, $10 million for 60% of the company. Maya wanted to accept. Samuel called it life-changing. I nearly signed. Then I read the final clause. The investors intended to limit Aegis to private luxury developments, where the highest-paying clients could use it to reduce insurance costs. Low-income housing, public schools, and city infrastructure would receive no access unless municipalities paid premium rates. I refused. The investors walked away. For a week, Maya barely spoke to me. On Friday evening, she found me alone in the office, replacing a broken desk leg with a stack of old manuals. "You turned down enough money to solve every problem we have," she said. "I know. Samuel has medical debt. I'm living with my sister. You haven't taken a real salary in 18 months. "I know." "Then explain it." I looked at the map on the wall. Red dots marked active structural alerts across 5 cities. "My father warned people about a dangerous building," I said. No one listened because the system didn't connect the information. 2 people died. If we build this only for people who can pay the most, then we're not solving the problem. We're just making rich buildings safer. Maya stared at me. Then she pulled a chair to the desk. "What do we do now?" "We survive another month." She exhaled slowly. "All right. Samuel arrived the next morning with groceries, 3 new client leads, and a handmade sign that read, "We survive another month." We did. Then another. And another. Our breakthrough came when a national insurance company tested Aegis across 200 commercial properties. Claims dropped by 18% in the first year. Within months, we had offers from every major infrastructure fund in the country. This time, we chose our partners carefully. Aegis Technologies expanded from 3 employees to 80, then 300, then 1,200. We opened offices in 6 states. Our systems monitored hospitals, bridges, transit lines, public housing, power stations, and schools. Business magazines requested interviews. Television networks invited me onto financial programs. I declined most of them. The press began calling me the invisible CEO. I did not hide because I was ashamed. I hid because attention had once been the thing I wanted most. I had spent years longing for Claire to look at me with admiration. Now I understood that recognition was not the same as purpose. While Aegis grew, Claire's life followed a different path. I heard fragments through mutual friends. She married Victor a year after our divorce. Their wedding appeared in society pages. The ceremony took place at a vineyard in Italy. Claire wore a custom gown, and Victor gave her a diamond necklace that once belonged to a European countess. For a while, she seemed to have everything she believed she wanted. Then Hale Urban Development began to collapse. Victor had built his empire on aggressive debt, political favors, and incomplete safety records. Several of his properties failed new inspection standards. Banks tightened credit. Contractors filed lawsuits. A residential tower in Brooklyn was evacuated after engineers discovered unauthorized structural changes. The company's stock lost 70% of its value. Victor blamed regulators. Then he blamed his executives. Eventually, he blamed Claire. She had become Hale Development's chief strategy officer, a title that gave her prestige when the company was thriving and responsibility when it failed. 5 years after the night at the restaurant, Aegis received a confidential proposal from a federal restructuring committee. Hale Urban Development controlled thousands of residential units and several major public projects. Allowing it to collapse suddenly would displace families, freeze construction, and create enormous safety risks. The committee wanted Aegis to acquire the company's viable assets, install independent oversight, and rebuild its infrastructure systems. Maya placed the proposal on my desk. "You know who works there?" she said. "I know. And who owns most of the remaining shares?" "I know." She watched me closely. "Are you going to reject it?" I read the first page again. "If we do this, what happens to the tenants? We preserve the housing portfolio, complete safety repairs, and prevent mass displacement. And the employees? Most keep their jobs. Senior leadership gets reviewed. Including Claire?" "Including Claire." I closed the folder. "Then we proceed." Maya did not move. "That's it. That's it. You don't want time to think about seeing her again?" "I've had 5 years." The acquisition remained secret until the night of the official announcement. Hale Development hosted its annual foundation gala at the same restaurant where I had returned my wedding ring. When I saw the venue listed on the invitation, I almost laughed. Some circles do not close quietly. They wait for you under the same lights. Claire arrived with Victor shortly after 8. According to Maya, who was already inside, they entered separately and posed together only when photographers approached. Victor looked older than his 60 years. Claire looked almost unchanged from a distance. Elegant, composed, perfectly dressed. She had no idea who the acquiring CEO was. Aegis's public filings listed my name, but few photographs existed online. Claire had never followed the technology industry. Even if someone had mentioned Ethan Cole, she would not have connected the founder of Aegis with the man she once knew. To her, I had remained frozen in the past, the tired engineer in the faded shirt, standing beside a restaurant table with rain on his shoulders. I arrived through the side entrance because security wanted to avoid early attention. I wore a black suit tailored by a designer whose name I could never remember. On my wrist was my father's old steel watch, repaired but not replaced. 2 federal investigators walked behind me. They were overseeing documents related to Hale Development's safety violations. As I entered the main dining room, memory struck with physical force. The chandelier, the windows, the burgundy chairs. For 1 second, I could see myself standing beside that table again, holding back anger while strangers watched my marriage die. Then Maya stepped beside me. You all right? Yes. You don't look all right. I'm remembering who I was. And I adjusted my cuff. I'm grateful he kept walking. Before the announcement, I crossed the room toward a private meeting area. Claire was seated at a table near the windows with Victor and 3 board members. She looked up as I passed. Our eyes met. Confusion appeared first, then disbelief. She rose slowly. Ethan. Victor turned. His face registered recognition a second later. I stopped a few feet away. Claire stared at my suit, the security detail, and the event credentials clipped discreetly inside my jacket. What are you doing here? The question was identical to the one she had asked 5 years earlier. This time, I answered differently. Business. Victor laughed, though there was no amusement in it. Whose business? Mine. Claire looked from me to the investigators behind me. Are you working for the restructuring committee? In a manner of speaking. One of the board members, a man who had known Claire for years, examined me with mild contempt. This area is for principal guests. Maya stepped forward, but I raised one hand. It's fine. Claire's expression shifted into the familiar mixture of embarrassment and irritation. Ethan, whatever you're trying to prove, tonight is not the time. I'm not trying to prove anything. Then why are you here? Victor stood, buttoning his jacket. You heard her. Leave. Several nearby guests turned to watch. A whisper moved through the room. I felt the old humiliation waiting like a shadow, inviting me to become the wounded man I had once been. But I was no longer angry. That surprised me more than anything. I looked at Claire and saw not the woman who had destroyed me, but someone still trapped inside the same hunger that had destroyed our marriage. She needed appearances to become reality. She needed admiration to become love. She needed wealth to become worth. I had spent years believing she had chosen Victor because he was more powerful than I was. Now I saw the truth. She had chosen the image of power because she had never learned to recognize strength without applause. A chime sounded from the stage. The master of ceremonies approached the microphone. Ladies and gentlemen, please take your seats. Tonight's announcement concerns the future of Hale Urban Development and the thousands of residents, employees, and partners who depend on its continued operation. Victor looked toward the stage. His confidence flickered. Claire lowered her voice. Ethan, go. Please. Before security removes you. I studied her face. Then I reached into the inner pocket of my jacket. Her eyes widened. Perhaps she remembered the last time I had stood beside her table and reached into my pocket. I removed a small blue velvet box. The room around us seemed to hold its breath. Claire went pale. Victor stared at the box, then at me. I opened it. Inside lay the wedding ring I had placed on the table 5 years earlier. Claire's hand flew to her chest. You kept it? She whispered. I found it in the envelope your attorney sent with the divorce documents. Her eyes glistened. For one fragile second, hope appeared on her face. It was so unexpected and so naked that several people nearby exchanged stunned looks. Claire stepped toward me. Ethan, Victor's jaw tightened. What the hell is this? I took the ring from the box and placed it in Claire's open palm. The gesture mirrored the past, but the meaning had changed. I didn't come to ask for you back, I said. Her fingers closed around the ring. Then why give it to me? Because I carried it for years as proof of what you did to me. Her eyes filled with tears. And now it belongs to a life I no longer live. The master of ceremonies continued speaking. 5 years ago, our incoming owner began with 3 employees and a mission to prevent infrastructure failures before lives were lost. Today, his company protects more than 20,000 properties across the United States. Claire stopped, breathing. Victor turned slowly toward the stage. Behind us, a giant screen illuminated with the silver logo of Aegis Technologies. The board member who had asked me to leave gripped the edge of the table. The master of ceremonies smiled. Please welcome the founder and chief executive officer of Aegis Technologies and the new controlling owner of Hale Urban Development, Mr. Ethan Cole. The entire room rose. Applause thundered beneath the chandelier. Claire stared at me as if I had become someone else in front of her. Victor's face drained of color. The 2 federal investigators stepped closer to him. I walked toward the stage. Each step carried me farther from the man who had once left that room in the rain. I did not look back until I reached the microphone. From the stage, I could see Claire standing motionless, my old wedding ring clenched in her hand. Victor remained beside her, but the distance between them looked enormous. I waited for the applause to fade. Tonight is not a celebration of a corporate victory, I began. It is a commitment. The room became silent. Hale Urban Development owns homes where families put their children to bed. It manages buildings where people work, learn, and build their lives. Those responsibilities were treated as numbers on a balance sheet for too long. Victor's eyes narrowed. I continued. Beginning tomorrow, every property in the Hale portfolio will undergo an independent safety review. Deferred repairs will be funded before executive bonuses. Tenants who reported unresolved hazards will receive direct access to a new oversight office. Employees who raised concerns and were ignored will be protected. Applause rose again, this time from the employees gathered near the back. I looked toward Victor. Leadership is not the privilege of being obeyed. It is the burden of being accountable. The investigators moved to his table. One of them quietly asked him to accompany them to a private room. Victor's composure shattered. This is a performance, he snapped. He's doing this because of her. Hundreds of faces turned toward Claire. She looked down. Victor pointed at me. He was nothing when she left him. Nothing. He built this entire charade to humiliate us. I stepped away from the microphone. No, Victor. My voice carried through the room. I built Aegis because people deserve to feel safe in the buildings you treated like gambling chips. Victor lunged toward the stage, but security stopped him. The investigators escorted him out beneath the gaze of the same people who had once competed for his attention. Claire remained standing alone. After my speech, board members surrounded me. Reporters shouted questions. Employees approached to thank me. City officials requested meetings. Through it all, I saw Claire slip through a side door. I found her 20 minutes later on the balcony. Rain streaked the glass towers beyond the railing. For a moment, neither of us spoke. She still held the wedding ring. You became everything I thought you would never be, she said. No, she looked at me. I became everything I stopped believing I could be. Tears rolled down her cheeks. I was cruel to you. Yes. I made you feel small. Yes. I thought if I had the right apartment, the right title, the right husband, I would finally feel secure. I said nothing. She looked down at the ring. Victor and I haven't been happy for years. I'm sorry. Her face tightened. Are you? I don't want you to suffer, Claire. But you don't love me anymore. The answer came without effort. No, she closed her eyes. I had expected that moment to feel victorious. It did not. There was no pleasure in watching someone understand too late what they had destroyed. Only sadness for the people we had been and the life we might have shared if respect had survived disappointment. I did love you, I said. More than I knew how to love myself. She covered her mouth as a sob escaped. I thought you were giving up, she whispered. Every time you chose that project over a promotion, every time you wore the same jacket, every time you said we had to wait before buying something, I thought it meant you lacked ambition. I was building something. I know that now. You could have known then. She looked at me helplessly. I didn't understand. You didn't try. The rain grew heavier. Inside, music began playing. Again, as the gala resumed, Claire turned the ring between her fingers. Do you remember our first apartment? Yes. The pipes rattled all night, and the oven only worked if we held the knob in. She laughed through her tears. We ate takeout on the floor because we didn't have a table. We were happy. I was happy, she said. I just didn't know happiness could look so ordinary. That sentence stayed between us. After a while, she asked, Is there someone else? Yes. Pain crossed her face, but she nodded. Does she know who you were? She knows who I am. Maya and I had not planned to fall in love. It happened slowly, over years of shared work, failed pitches, late-night dinners, and difficult decisions. She had known me when I slept in an office chair and when magazines called me a visionary. She treated both versions of me as the same man. We were getting married in the spring, not at an Italian vineyard, in a small garden near my father's old neighborhood. Claire looked through the glass doors and saw Maya speaking with several engineers. She's beautiful. She is. And she believes in you. She challenges me. That matters more. Claire gave a faint, broken smile. I used to think love meant finding someone impressive enough to make you feel important. What do you think now? I think love is being careful with the part of someone that trusts you. I looked at her. That's a hard lesson. I learned it too late. She extended the wedding ring toward me. I shook my head. I don't want it. Neither do I. Then throw it away. Her fingers closed around it again. I can't. That's your choice. I turned toward the door. Ethan, I stopped. If I had stayed, would you still have become this man? I considered the question. No, she flinched. Because I held you back? Because I let you. I opened the door. She stood alone on the balcony, surrounded by the city she had once believed would make her whole. The following morning, Aegis began its review of Hale development. We discovered falsified inspection reports, diverted repair funds, and secret agreements designed to conceal structural problems. Victor was later charged with fraud, obstruction, and reckless endangerment. Claire cooperated with investigators. She lost her executive position, her apartment, and most of the social circle she had spent years trying to impress. But during the investigation, she provided documents that protected hundreds of employees from being blamed for decisions made above them. I did not intervene on her behalf. I did not punish her either. For the first time, I allowed her life to belong entirely to her. Months later, I received a handwritten letter. She had moved to a small town in Connecticut and taken a job with a nonprofit housing organization. She wrote that she was learning how cities failed people who had no influence. She wrote that she had sold her jewelry to fund legal aid for tenants displaced by Victor's projects. At the end, she wrote, "I used to believe your ring meant you promised never to leave me. Now I understand it meant I was supposed to protect what we built together. I am sorry I treated your love like evidence of weakness. I do not expect forgiveness, but I hope one day I can become someone who would have deserved it." Inside the envelope was the wedding ring. I held it for a long time. Then I drove to the Bronx and visited the memorial garden built where the collapsed apartment block had once stood. My father's name appeared on a plaque honoring inspectors who had fought for safer housing. I buried the ring beneath a young oak tree. Not out of anger. Not to erase the past. Some things should not be carried forever. In spring, Maya and I married beneath strings of white lights in a garden filled with friends, employees, family, and people who had been with us before success made our names recognizable. Samuel served as best man. He gave a speech about our first office, our broken coffee maker, and the sign that still hung in Aegis headquarters. We survive another month. When it was time to exchange rings, Maya took my hand. "You're shaking," she whispered. "I know." Nervous. Grateful. She smiled. Our rings were simple silver bands. No photographers from Society magazines attended. No billionaires watched from the front row. The chairs did not match. The microphone failed twice, and rain began, falling just as we finished our vows. Everyone laughed and ran beneath the tents. Maya stayed beside me in the rain. "You know," she said, "most people would consider this bad timing. I've had worse nights in the rain." She kissed me. For years, I had imagined success as a moment when Claire would finally look at me and understand my value. I thought victory would be seeing regret in her eyes. But standing in that garden, holding the hand of a woman who had never needed me to become richer, louder, or more admired before she respected me, I understood how wrong I had been. The greatest reversal was not that I became the owner of Victor's company. It was not that the room applauded while Claire stood speechless. It was not that the man who mocked me was led away by investigators. The real victory happened much earlier, in a leaking room above a laundromat, when I stopped asking someone else to decide whether my dream was worthy. I had handed Claire my wedding ring because I believed our marriage had ended. In truth, that was the moment my life began again. I did not become successful to make her regret leaving. I became successful when I finally stopped leaving myself.